go.
Hi, all right. We're going to be doing our analysis on long snapping. I'm Robert Wolcott,
I'm Sam Miller. I'll be doing the unskilled performance.
and I was the skilled performer, and I'll also be comparing and contrasting the skilled performer. Here we have the sagittal plane from the right side of the skilled. You can see it's very fast. The video's laggy because it's a GIF, but you can see there's a clear loading phase, release phase. It's very hard to see all the movements as it's just a very quick movement. As we move into the other side, the left side of the sagittal plane, you can see that there is a different hand placement. For the left hand, it is kind of cocked and extended just to make sure that there's control of the ball. Very flat back, nice, powerful, even stance, and just let her fly. As we move into the transverse plane, much better view, same plane as a barbell row as the movement's bent over. Here we can see quite a whole lot in terms of the movement phase, but once again, it is very quick, so we'll get a better analysis later on in it. It's very quick movement, very hard to see because of my head.
Here you can see me doing an unskilled version of the long snap. I obviously don't know what I'm doing with many parts of my body in this performance. My feet are laterally rotated out. My knees aren't really flexed at all, while my hamstrings are just barely flexed there. I only have one hand on the ball. The ball's not on the ground as well, not like getting enough force off of that too. And one other big thing is that the trunk is moving throughout of it. It should just be at a stable position while you're snapping. On the other side, you can see basically the same thing, except like you see different hand position. One hand behind the back, which is not proper form. You need both on the ball when you're snapping it. Let's go to the next one. And then finally, transverse, you can kind of see how much the legs are abducted, which isn't as much of a problem in comparison, but the feet are very laterally rotated, which does not give you a lot of stabilization right there.
All right, so I'm going to talk about the comparison between the skilled and unskilled, but primarily focusing on the difference that the unskilled is making towards the skilled. So here we can see in the skilled, there is a clear flexion of the elbow into the force production stage. This is to align my target that I will be snapping towards, and it is also to not scrape the ball onto the ground, causing friction and the ball to have less velocity when it's coming out. As we can look over to the unskilled, we see a clear picking up of the ball as that is not optimal for long snapping. That is a penalty. And we kind of just see a clear extension of the shoulder, no real movement with the elbow, which, as you can see over here as it comes back, is pretty eminent and a necessity towards the long snap. Not to mention, another big part of the snap is the lumbar flex that occurs. My body kind of becomes a 4. That is to make sure I'm stable in the legs, I'm fully locked out with my arms, and that I have good lumbar flexion to ensure that my target is hit where it needs to be. Compared to the unskilled over here, not much really goes on in terms of the back, in terms of flexion towards the specifically in the lumbar section. Not a whole lot's going on there. If we go on to the next plane, it is just as big. Here we see the hand not gripping the ball the right way. Anyone who is a long snapper, it's very irritating. 2 hands on the ball over here. We see, once again, the hand is in a very extended position. It's your main stabilizer as you snap. Big 4 in the body motion towards, compared to, once again, just not real prominent here. The feet, big, no in terms of long snapping, as they are your stability, and without stability you will fall in this movement, because once again it is a very powerful one. And for our last phase we have the transverse. Big difference in terms of what we can see here. We have a very level flexion and a little bit of horizontal extension, which I actually need to fix. As it should just be both elbows flex, shoulders extend, and then extension of the elbows into a nice smooth release point. Over here, once again, we don't really see much elbow flexion. We have the arm behind the back, which, good choice if you're trying to be wrong. Big lateral flexion of all joints, really, because it is ankle, knee, and hip lateral flexion. As we can see over here, we'll wait one more time for me to finish. We can see that I end with both hands coming back in the same manner. That is to create a viewpoint. I am aiming with my wrists flexed and medially rotated to create the sense of a shotgun barrel. That is to make sure that the ball goes towards its target. One of the big key points in determining a skill and unskill is most times one of the arms will not be medially rotated, or they won't be the same. You kind of want to aim for that 9 and 3 o'clock. Over here, his hand is like this at 12. Very easy sign between the two.
If we come over here looking at the anatomical analysis of the skill performer, you can see how the trunk is at a level place right here, and then it goes down and curves as he's going through the motion. You see his elbows are flexing more as it right here, and then they extend at the very end to get that force for the ball to go fast and far. You can see that he has his hamstrings and his knee flexed slightly to get a little more stabilization with the feet square. And then as you can just see, as you go through from preparatory to execution to follow through, it's just a solid motion as he's going the same way. Then if you look over here to unskilled, you can see a very stark difference. In the preparatory phase, there's not as much flexion of really anything. The trunk is kind of level, but the arm, like as in the humerus and the ulna radius, they are just completely straight. There's nothing really happening with them. The hamstrings are at a decent flexion, but the knees aren't flexed really at all, which is something that was really emphasized in the skill. The feet can't really show it in the anatomical analysis, but they are lateral. They're not just straight on like the skilled. Moving on to execution, rather than like the skilled, the unskilled me was bringing their back up during the snapping, which is not something you're supposed to be doing. The form's completely wrong. The arms also never really flex. The shoulders extend through it, with one arm even being behind the back during the videos. And then you can see the knees never really flex like the skilled. Hamstrings stay in the same position, and then there's never movement with the feet as there was in the skilled, with the skilled having dorsiflexion and the unskilled just completely leaving them out laterally flexed, rotated.
To move off of what Sam was saying, I just wanted to talk about the final point, the recovery phase. As we can see here, that after I finish the snap, I move into a nice solid position, as in that snap was a PAT, so I would need to stay nice and square as the guys will be rushing towards the middle, even though they're not supposed to. Need to keep a firm base, and I like to have my feet forward, as in a game there will be linemen having their feet inside of mine, thus limiting not only my accuracy to a finer point, as my hands won't be able to move as much, but I will then have to keep my feet wide because they will be interlocking with me. So I need to make sure that I am stable enough to where pretty much the arch doesn't collapse.
And then as you see with the unskilled performer, with the lateral rotation of the feet, that doesn't provide any stabilization. The other opposing lineman can just come straight at you and it will push you straight on your back.
And one last point I really wanted to make was the release point. As we can see, especially with the unskilled, there will be a very high release point. Compared to the skilled over here, very low. That's just to ensure accuracy cause. I mean, I could go into the fact that this person is not even looking where he's aiming, so no wonder the ball is all out of whack. Compared to the skill, once she re-goes, there we go, head down the entire time, looking at its target, and it hits it right on the dot. Just the big contrast, as we can see, the neck is actually flexed on the unskilled, so the pure abandonment of accuracy. And we can just see over here, follow through back into it, no real recovery stance. There we go, finally gets it, but moves the feet as well. Stability is gone. Over here, big power phase. All right, so as you can see, there are many big differences between our skilled and unskilled. And there's not really a whole lot of hope for our skilled as a prominent snapper to continue.
The unskilled just doesn't know what he's doing at all. The skilled has obviously been doing this for many years, while the unskilled is both trying his best to do it poorly and also going off as what he knows.